Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a rundown of all of the things that we've done to the Xtrainer to kind of liven it up a little bit, give it a little bit more power, make it a little bit more awesome for a short rider like me. Stock, the Xtrainers are badass. Like, they're fully capable bikes. I rode this thing for a year and a half before we started making modifications to it. I even had Nick jump on it a couple times, do some gnarly hill climbs, some big trials moves. Super capable bike. Right now, both of my bikes are in a transition period. I've been riding this bike. I'm probably gonna sell this bike, so we're gonna take a lot of the stuff off of this one and put it back on the Xtrainer. But let's start with some tire setup. So I'm currently running the Plu's Tough One, the Spec B with the longer knobs. And it's got a super soft mousse in here. If you don't know, we run super soft tires, a gummy setup with some mousses and hard enduro. We run them pretty gosh darn soft. This might be a little too soft, but Tire Theory is a whole can of worms, so we'll make a whole different video on that. So I run a stiff mousse with the Plu's Grand Prix on the front. I run the SXS skid plate. I like it because it's a little bit flexible, but it's still just as hard as a metal skid plate. And it slides nice. This plastic doesn't get stuck in the logs and the rocks. It slides nice and smooth. They make hand guards out of the same material too. So this solves that flags versus wraparound debate. As long as you put these farther out than the end of your handlebars, your levers don't get bent or broken. It's an awesome setup. And the other nice part about these flags is that this metal brace actually offers you some protection on your perches, because this will be your first point of contact. I even got a hit there. You can see the flag bent before it hit the perch because it's above, so it kind of wraps around and encapsulates all of your lever setup, and it helps just really protect the bars. Now, with the bars taking hard hits, I actually have the Mako360 with the Jarvis Dually underneath. This is from XC Gear. It's a handlebar mount that has polymers that surround all of the hard points. They sell this as a vibration dampener, but I actually bought it as bar bend protection and to help prevent my bars from twisting. You know, when you crash and you have to put the front wheel between your legs and then yank on the bars. This mount actually really helps keep everything solid and steady, and it absorbs a lot of those impacts through the polymers. And the unexpected thing that happened when we got the Jarvis Dually is we found out that you have options to bring your handlebars closer to the cockpit, which really helps the bike setup as a shorter rider, making the cockpit a little bit smaller, so it allows me to move through the cockpit a lot nicer and get my weight farther back when I need to. Which brings us to two other points of conversation. The first one is gonna be the pegs. So I have a guy making me some custom pegs. So these pegs right now are 5 down, 5 back from where they normally are. But Quinn Barhow on Instagram is actually gonna make us some stock height pegs, and they're gonna be 6 millimeters back. And our theory for that is gonna be that the higher the foot peg is, the more leverage I'm gonna have to get off of the seat. It's gonna give me better reach to the ground by getting me farther up the bike. And that's gonna help me maximize my ability to move up and down on the bike. As a short person, if I drop my pegs, I have less ability to get down on the bike, to push down. I have less room to squat down on the bike. So as a shorter, lighter rider, I need to be able to move as much as possible on the bike to give more aggressive inputs and help compress the suspension more. So having stock height foot pegs is really gonna help me with that. Plus I have the cut seat, which gives me quite a bit of room to move as well. Our thinking with moving the foot pegs back is that it'll be a lot easier for me to be able to reach the ground while my front end is in the air. So we're gonna try and move the whole cockpit back a little bit. That means the bars are rolling back, the foot pegs are moving back. And our third experiment idea is we're going to flip these blocks around so that this end is where the tensioner is, and that will bring the rear tire closer to the back of the bike. So we're really trying to shrink the cockpit and bring it as close to the rear tire as we can, just to make it easier for me to be able to reach the ground in those technical situations, especially when my front tire is in the air. Obviously, there are some positive and negatives to every bike setup, but I have to really do the best job that I can to try and level the playing field as a shorter rider. I'm really thinking about how to get to the ground quicker And with hard enduro, we're really trying to keep most of our weight over the rear tire most of the time anyway, and we're trying to lift that front tire. So this might benefit from that. It might take away from my hill climbs, or it might be perfect. We're not super sure yet. So we're really just trying to experiment with this, get a feel for what's going on. Things might change, we might have to make some adjustments, but this is our basic theory for how we're gonna set the Xtrainer up this winter while I'm getting ready to ride again. Another game changer is putting a 9mm clutch master cylinder on your bike instead of the stock 10mm master cylinder. What that does is it widens your window of engagement. It's not so on-off. You have this big window of friction zone, as some people call it. It really allows you to feel where your clutch is engaging instead of that very like light switch, that herky-jerky feeling that you might get in your clutch. 9mm master cylinder really broadens that, and it doesn't change how your clutch behaves. 9mm master cylinder is a very natural feeling. It's not like some of those other levers that I've seen out there where it becomes really unpredictable. It's kind of gimmicky and you're not quite sure where the clutch is going to engage, versus the 9mm is very smooth. It's very consistent and predictable. Helps widen your window of engagement, gives you better feel of your clutch, and it still acts and behaves as it normally would on a clutch. From what I've seen and all of the people that I know that have done the 9mm upgrade, I haven't heard of any negative effects on anybody's clutches or motors that come from a 9mm master cylinder upgrade. And honestly, it's a really common modification that a lot of people do for hard enduro. Some of the other really basic upgrades that we've done is we put a bigger pipe on the Xtrainer after about 2 years. It helped open up the power quite a bit, but it was still lugging, so we cut out the airbox. It comes with a restricted airbox, so we took that out and we just cut out the restrictor plate and put it back in. So now it just looks like a regular air filter cage. We put a JD jetting kit in there. After you put on the pipe and you cut out the airbox, you gotta change the jetting just a little bit, so we put a JD jetting kit in. Obviously, how you jet your carburetor is gonna completely change based off of where you live, the temperature, where you're riding, your elevation. All of that stuff plays a part in jetting. Recently, we put a race harness on here as well as the oil injection delete kit. And then we've got aftermarket start and kill switches. I put my start switch on the clutch side because it's a little bit quicker off the line when you're doing a race. You can have the throttle on a little bit when you hit the starter. That also helps in some technical situations. If you're stuck on a hill and you got to start your bike in the middle of the hill and hold it in a spot, it's a little bit easier to have the throttle on when you hit the start button. Speaking of the throttle, I break the stock throttle housings a lot. They come plastic, so now I have the T-Rex throttle housing on here. It's a totally metal system. The throttle tube itself is also metal, which is rad, so I haven't broken one of these yet. I've got probably 200 hours on this throttle housing. The brake lever on the Xtrainer usually has a lot of slop in it, so what we did is we actually pulled this pin out and we cut a pop can and we wrapped it and made ourselves a little bushing and pushed this back in here to take that slop out and really tighten up the brake lever. There's an aftermarket pin that you can buy instead of doing that, but I'm not sure what it is. And while we're talking about brakes, the Xtrainer comes with the Nissin brakes, which are super bitey, very aggressive, which you have to be kind of careful about if you're a newer rider. You can lock up the tires pretty easily with really low effort. But for me, I love these brakes because it means I can stop on a dime at slower speeds, which really helps in that technical riding. But when it comes to setting up my brake lever setup, I have my brake levers super high, my rear brake lever. And that's just because I'm constantly having my weight off the back, so it can be really hard to reach the brake lever if it's down below my foot pegs. And I'm constantly changing like how high my brake lever is depending on what I'm trying to do, but as a rule of thumb, I try and have my brake lever almost as high as I can get it. Sometimes you never know when it's gonna happen. You just really need to get to your brakes and you might not be able to reach it. So the higher the rear brake is, the easier it is for me to find in those last second moments that I really need it. We put a kickstart on here just because we could as a backup. And then the last thing that we did is we redid the internals on the suspension over at Ride Suspension. He did a revalve, reshim, and he's done really great work to make these forks as sturdy as they can be when it comes to the faster paced technical riding. There are some upgrades that we are planning on doing. I'm gonna do a WP swap on the Xtrainer. That probably won't be for a couple months, but that's our next big thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna plug in a WP shock and WP forks. And that's just to kind of, it's more accessible. We have to replace some parts internally in the forks, and the price to replace some of those parts comes out to the same price as it would be to get WP suspension. So we've decided that we're gonna go that route and make it a little easier to get some parts for the suspension going forward. If you guys have any other questions about bike setup or Xtrainer versus X Pro, make sure to drop them in the comments down below, and I'll see you on the next video.